finishing last-minute preparation in our astronaut training center. And we expect them to merge at about T-minus 45 minutes, so coming up in about 12 minutes here. And of course, we're going to follow all the action as it unfolds. Now, to be clear today, there are going to be no humans on board flying to space, but everything leading up to that moment will be rehearsed under actual conditions. But before we get into today's details,
program to make sure it's safe for astronauts. We think it's very important not only to show that we have a very robust design, but that we can repeat the feat over and over again until we are satisfied that we have enough data to fly people on it. The first time we flew New Shepard, it went to space, and we demonstrated every single aspect of the operation of the capsule for re-entry, parachute deployment, and that mission was 100% successful for the capsule. M2 was about taking what we learned from that mission, rolling in changes, and trying it again.
Engine start, we have thrust. Touchdown.
This time we stuck the landing, but we wanted to do more than just show that it was possible one time, but we needed to show we could do it again. So that was what M3 was. We turned around the vehicle as quickly as possible and we flew it again to show that we could do it again in a relatively short amount of time. For M4, we pushed the envelope. We executed aerodynamic maneuvers on the propulsion module and crew capsule on reentry to really understand what they were capable of doing. The way that we land the propulsion module today, doing it just lighting the engine just seconds before it would impact the ground and doing this controlled landing, we perfected it at that time.
Human safety is fundamental to the design of both of the vehicles, but especially the crew capsule.
The capsule is the most highly redundant and safe space flight system we think that has ever been designed or flown. Every detail on that capsule, no matter how small, has been thought through carefully. We also did not compromise on fault tolerance, and that's the idea that you have redundancy, that if a system fails, you have a backup system, and in most cases, you have a backup to the backup system. For instance, the capsule is designed to be safe for astronauts if only one of the 3 main parachutes opens, and so we wanted to test that in real life on M5. So in M5, we intentionally did not deploy one of the main parachutes. In that situation, the retro rocket actually compensates for the higher descent rate by adjusting the amount of thrust, and it worked perfectly. Now, if the capsule is going down way too fast because it has only one parachute opening, then our 3rd and 4th safety systems engage, which is a crushable section, sort of like a bumper. Then the seats have a scissor mechanism underneath them that has further energy absorption. The capsule has an escape system, which is designed in case there is something wrong detected on the propulsion module to get the astronauts away and get them to safety.
From the moment that we have closed the hatch, we can go escape enabled. And from that moment on, being this full envelope escape, we have very high confidence that we can keep people safe.
We've done a pad escape test where we can show that the capsule can launch and escape if there is an anomaly or an accident on the pad. The M6 mission was about testing that at its most stressing condition. We ignited the solid rocket motor in flight and showed that we could recover the capsule safely. For M7, what we introduced was a new capsule design that included the very large windows, seats, control systems on board that would control the environment in the cabin. That was the very first mission for that combined vehicle stack, and it was successful. M8 was just a repeat of M7 largely, and then the 3rd escape test was to show that we could escape in space. So on M9, the propulsion module boosted the capsule to space, and after separation, the capsule lit off its solid rocket motor and re-entered and landed safely.
We've demonstrated with pad escape and the in-flight escape, transonic escape, that capsule escape system is solid.
Between M9 and M13, we are flying payload missions for customers, giving us even more and more confidence in the capability of the new Shepard system. 13 was a perfect flight, and we're preparing for the M14 mission, which will just be another verification and check. The overall mission of Blue Origin has remained completely the same. We are here to build the road to space.
Wow, that was a truly inspiring video and a lot of great stuff from Gary. You know, anytime he opens his mouth, I just sit up and listen because I know I'm going to get some knowledge dropped on me here.
That man is a well of knowledge, that is for sure.
Yeah, so as we can tell from that video, what Gary's been saying, it perfectly sets the stage and the context for why this astronaut experience rehearsal matters and how it fits in with the broader scope of this new Shepard launch and campaign.
Agreed, Patrick. Gary in that video really helps us understand the how and the why of what we do here at Blue Origin. And today, we're doing a lot. Okay, so let's get into it and discuss the overview of the astronaut experience once we do start flying people. So here we go. First, the astronauts will arrive 3 days before flight. They will be met by our astronaut experience team who will take them out to their accommodations at Launch Site 1, and that's where they will meet crew member 7. Now, you're going to hear us talk a lot about crew member 7 today. They are the astronauts' guide through the entire experience. The next day, the astronauts will begin their training, diving into detailed mission and vehicle overviews, learning the procedures for getting into and out of the capsule, and they'll also be part of a mission simulation where they're going to be strapped into their seats in a replica of the crew capsule, a lot like what you see behind us today. Now, on launch day, they're going to suit up, show some of that, you know, Patrick, that astronaut swagger, and go through final preparations. And last but not least, they're going to caravan out to the tower, climb up the tower through the hatch and buckle up, and that's when things get real.
That's right, really real, Ariane, because that's when they're going to be ready to actually take off into space and get that incredible experience. Now, let's talk about today's stand-in experience and today's astronauts who are not exactly going to space, but they're going to be doing everything up to that point, including going all the way into the capsule while the rocket is fueled and testing all of that. And earlier today, as you can see here on the screen, they moved from their astronaut village over to the training center where they're actually at right now and doing their final preparations.
Today is going to be a big day for them, and as we noted, at about T-minus 45 minutes, so that's coming up in about 3 or 4 minutes here, they're going to leave the training center and continue the astronaut load process by proceeding out to the pad. So while we stand by for that, why don't we give our viewers a lay of the land? So our field reporter, Caitlin Dietrich, was at Launch Site 1 recently during some of our previous astronaut rehearsals, and she filmed a video to give you an up-close look of Launch Site 1. Let's check it out.
Hello everyone, I'm Caitlin Dietrich. I'm here in beautiful West Texas watching the sunrise over Blue Origin's Launch Site 1. This site is where our astronauts are soon going to fly to space, and today I want to take you on a tour of some of the highlights they'll experience before their mission. You know, you just feel like you should kind of be out here on horseback, but then you turn the corner onto our launch site and see the barn with our feather on it, and there's 2 rockets living in there. Before our astronauts go to space, they'll come visit their vehicle in the barn. This is where our astronauts will arrive during their training to greet their vehicle, get acquainted with the capsule, and learn about the booster. This is also where our mission team mates the crew capsule with the booster. Then, the night before launch, the booster rolls out those doors on the way to the launch pad. All right, so right now we're driving the road to space, which is the road the astronauts will take to go to the tower, climb up, and get in the capsule. And when our astronauts arrive here, they'll walk up these stairs, and they're only a few steps away from their trip to space. Once you get to the top of the tower, you see your rocket and your capsule. And this is going to be one of those moments that you remember for the rest of your life. Tell us what you do on launch days for our astronauts.
We go straight into installing the thermal conditioning system in the cabin. Crew member 7 will buckle the astronauts into their seats. At that point in time, we will close the hatch and the bridge will retract a little bit and they'll be ready for flight.
And liftoff.
This place is the start of something really special, and you can't help but feel that way when you're down at Launch Site 1.
Very cool. Patrick, we've been down there a couple of times. It is a spectacular place from which to begin and end your journey to space.
That's right.
Now, the anticipation is really building here at Blue Origin. After 15 consecutive successful missions, including our capsule pad escape test, we are well on our way to flying astronauts. And talking about astronauts, we're moments away from seeing our stand-in astronauts begin traveling to the pad. That should happen in about a minute or so. But in the meantime, let's discuss what we're about to see today and what they're going to do. So we've got a site map here for a little bit of context. So on the left side, on the west side of UC Texas Route 54 is our astronaut village. That's where the astronauts are going to stay. It's their base camp. On the right side of the screen, or the east side of Highway 54, is our launch complex, which includes our astronaut training center. So coming up in a couple of seconds here, the astronauts will leave the astronaut training center with crew member 7. They will shuttle just a few miles north to the tower. You can also see it there on your map. And that's where the rocket will be readying for launch. At T-minus 35, once on the launch pad, our astronauts and crew member 7 are going to climb the tower. This operation will take about 2 minutes. It is a relatively tall tower out there. And they're going to be accompanied by a photographer who's there to document the entire astronaut's pre-flight experience. And we also have a couple of tower cameras. So we will be giving you all a couple of different views and perspectives on the operation today. All right, we're at T-minus 45, Patrick, and I understand that we have gone into a brief hold here. So while we have a hold, why don't we check out New Shepard on the pad as the rocket, which, as we mentioned, we're going through this astronaut experience crew rehearsal today. The rocket itself is also going to be going to space, not with any astronauts on board, but we are preparing for a launch. So why don't we check out New Shepard here? Welcome back, everybody. We're at T-minus 45 minutes to go until launch. This will be New Shepard's 15th launch to space and back. We're at T-minus 45 minutes. We are in a brief hold. And again, what we're waiting for at the moment is for the crew, the stand-in astronauts.
Yeah.
They are Blue Origin employees today that are going through the entire crew experience rehearsal. So this is all of the actions that are happening up until they get into the capsule. They're going to be doing a couple of comms checks, and then we are going to egress the stand-in astronauts, bring them back down the tower, and then we will be having a launch of New Shepard again, 15th mission for New Shepard. So while we're in a hold, why don't we go back and check out New Shepard as we wait for our stand-in astronauts to leave their astronaut training center. Thank you again, everybody, for joining us for New Shepard's 15th flight to space, as well as a very exciting day for us at Blue Origin. We are doing a crew experience rehearsal. You see here on your screen, the stand-in astronauts have left the astronaut training center, and they are making their way out to the crew tower. Patrick, how exciting is that? I mean,
I know.
This is, to be able to overlay astronaut experience and astronaut rehearsals onto a launch, it is a critical step in our march towards actual first human flight, which is extraordinary. I'm getting chills just watching this.
Absolutely. I mean, there's obviously a lot of complexity in a normal rocket launch with all of the sequences that you actually have to go through. And then if you then layer in the complexity of actually loading astronauts safely, making sure they get in okay, get strapped in, and all the while considering safety, there's a lot of complexity there in that delicate ballet.
Absolutely. So here you see the stand-in astronauts. They're in that black vehicle there. They're just driving in front of what you see, our mission control facility. And coming on the right side of your screen here, that is the barn that we talk about with that big, beautiful feather on the side of it. The astronauts there stopping to wave to the team at mission control. They're in that vehicle, Patrick, with our crew member 7, a photography team, and today there will be 4 astronauts. You see there we have 2 crew member 7s, one Kevin Sprague, and the one there in the blue suit, that's Sarah Knights. One is always with the team, and the other is Capcom. So Sarah, as you saw there, she's going to be our Capcom for the day. She will be in the ear of our astronauts throughout their entire journey.
Yeah, that's right, Ariane. And there we see the team here. They just sort of circled that bend going past the barn, and now they're on their way over to the launch pad. This is what we call the road to space. It's this beautiful long straight road, about 2 miles, and in the backdrop there you would have New Shepard. I wonder, Ariane, if you were in that car right now, and let's say going up into space and seeing that rocket getting bigger and bigger, how would you be?
Astronaut Training Center. They've driven out to the pad here. They're going to take their photo. After the photo, they're going to continue around to the base of the tower, climb those stairs, the set of stairs at the base of the tower, and they're going to go into that white shelter that you see at the top of your screen at the top of the towers. That is the safety shelter. And they're going to wait for the tower crew to give them the thumbs up to load into the capsule. So at about T-minus 33, with assistance from the tower operations team and crew member 7, they'll load into the capsule, get into their seats, and buckle into their harnesses. So our stand-in astronauts are going to be sitting on a fully fueled rocket today. This is, Patrick, this is as real as it can get without igniting the ignition and sending them on a trip to space today. Again, the rocket will be doing that today, just not with the astronauts.
Yeah.
There they go.
It's a
Looking
cool
good.
picture
That's
right
a pretty
there.
cool picture right there. I feel like that's one of those photos that in your Zoom meeting background you'd have pretty prominently there. Just, just a little humble brag photo.
For me, I think it'd be the picture of me in the seat, unstrapped, floating around in front of that big window with the Earth in the backdrop. That'd be my Zoom background.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. I'll give you that one. That would be a pretty sweet money shot. All right, so they have finished their photo op there on the north side of the pad, and they're going to continue their drive around towards the base of the tower there. Let's watch. Thank you again, everybody, for joining us live for New Shepard's 15th flight to space. We are T-minus 37 minutes and 40 seconds to go until launch of New Shepard. We're in the middle of our astronaut rehearsal. Again, we're taking our stand-in astronauts, 4 Blue Origin employees, through our entire astronaut experience, and they will experience everything today that our astronaut customers will, minus the flight to space. The point today, of course, to weave in the astronaut operations on top of normal launch operations, which is critical to overall safe operations once we get into having customers on board today.
Absolutely.
Now, Patrick, why don't we pick it up? We talked about the timeline. They are just they are ascending the stairs as we called out earlier. What happens next?
Yeah, so once they go up and they get out of that white shelter there that we see, they're going to cross the gantry and actually get into the capsule. 2 of them are going to do that. And once they're actually settled in there, they're going to get strapped in. Crew member 7 is going to help them in. They're actually going to do a communications test with our Capcom or capsule communications. They're going to check to make sure we hear each other okay. And then we're going to do a simulated hatch closing. We're going to close the hatch, not latch it. Then we're going to, after a few moments, we're going to reopen the hatch, and then our astronauts are going to exit the capsule or egress, and then we're going to go back to a normal launch profile, so to speak, and they need to prep New Shepard for launch.
And Patrick, today, so while we have 4 stand-in astronauts going through this rehearsal today, only 2 of them are going to be getting into the capsule. Do you want to explain to us why that is?
Absolutely. So, as you know, we have 6 seats in our New Shepard, the crew capsule, so we can take 6 astronauts up into space. Now, today, we have the esteemed Mannequin Skywalker taking yet again another flight up into space. And the next 3 seats next to him are actually filled with boxes full of postcards from Club for the Future to take up into space and bring on those back. And so with all those seats, essentially, we only have 2 seats open, so that's why we're only going to have 2 of those astronauts actually go into the capsule.
Very exciting moment here. Now the astronauts have entered, the stand-in astronauts have entered into the safety shelter there. You see Kevin Sprogge, our crew member 7 on the right. We're going to get to know Kevin Sprogge and Sarah Knights, our first Blue Origin crew member 7s, in just a bit here. You might recognize Gary Lai on the left from earlier in our video today.
Absolutely. And Ariane, so these, our 4 stand-ins right now are in what we call our safety shelter. And, this room is a climate-controlled room where astronauts can do their final preparations like you see right now, get their briefing from Kevin. And this also serves as a safety stop in case, there's any issue on the pad. The astronauts and the team can safely stay in this shelter until situation is resolved. Of course, if our stand-ins or astronauts are in the capsule itself, they can quickly egress, make it across the gantry, and get into that shelter, and where they can wait out any issues at all. So, that room is quite multi-purpose there, as you can tell.
Right. Well, let's continue to watch here the operations inside the safety shelter. Looks like they are leaving the shelter.
That's right. So what you're going to see here is about an 8-minute-long process of actually loading the 2 astronauts there into the capsule, and at the end of which, like we said, we're going to simulate the hatch closing with the 2 stand-ins inside. Ariane, do you want to tell us about the 2 folks that are actually going to be going in here to this capsule today?
Sure. So in the foreground, you just saw our photographer, Joel Eby, who is preceding them. Got to catch some sweet photos, of course, of our astronauts as they head out there. So here we have Susan Knapp, Gary Lai, Audrey Powers, and in the back there we've got Clay Morey and Kevin Sprogge, our crew member 7. So we're the 4 astronauts plus the photographer and our crew member 7 have made their way obviously closer to the rocket. As you mentioned, only 2 of the stand-in astronauts are going to go into the capsule today. We've got, again, Mannequin Skywalker. You can see him.
right
He's
there.
already locked and loaded, ready for his flight to space. And 3 payload lockers that will be taking postcards from Club for the Future up. But we are soon to see Gary Lai. You heard from Gary a little bit earlier in our broadcast. He's been here over 17 years, and we call him the architect of New Shepard. So it's quite moving for all of us here at Team Blue to watch him ascend the tower and get inside of the capsule that he designed. Audrey, who you just saw step into the capsule there, she is one of the leaders of our legal team and is a big part of all of the operations that we conduct here at Blue. But, you know, in particular, Patrick, we talk a lot about the engineering that goes into the design and the manufacturing and the operations, et cetera. But there's an important legal component that goes into it too. In particular, there's a lot of interaction that we've had over years with the FAA. And so our point of contact is Audrey Powers. So to add to her, you know, rock star resume, she's also a pilot, no big deal, and the first female chair of the Commercial Spaceflight Federation. So really, really neat. She's had some incredible impact on space legislation and policy in some major ways, you know, for the whole entire commercial space industry. I do want to do a special little shout out to her niece, Genesee. Genesee is a big fan of Blue Origin, one of our Club for the Future members. So, hey, Genesee, good morning. And another shout out to Gary's kids, Anna and Alec. They are all potential future astronauts with us. So hopefully taking the footsteps behind their older family members. So why don't we continue to take a look here for our astronaut experience rehearsal. It is continuing. We have the stand-in astronauts in the capsule. Thank you again, everybody, for joining us today. We're at T-minus 29 minutes to go until launch. A very exciting day for us here at Blue Origin. This is New Shepard's 15th flight to space and our first astronaut experience dress rehearsal combined with a launch. We should note, again, no astronauts will be going to space today, but this is really a critical step in our march towards first human flight. Now, our stand-in astronauts, Blue Origin employees Gary Powers and Gary Lai and Audrey Powers are in the capsule, and it looks like the simulated hatch closing is about to get underway. Let's keep an eye on our screen for that.
Sounds good. And Ariane, I think right now what they're doing is the actual communications check. So they're talking with mission control and the other astronauts in the safety shelter using their push to talk. They're just confirming all of these checks. And as you pointed out, after we complete those checks, that's when we're going to close the hatch but not latch it, because we are going to have to take those Gary and Audrey out as much as we want to stay in there.
Yeah. I'm sure they might be trying to hide under the seat, but not today. Not today, Gary and Audrey. Soon, though.
Soon. Mannequin's keeping an eye on them.
Yeah, Mannequin's got a good eye on him, and this is his flight again today. So again, in the capsule, we have Audrey Powers and Gary Lai, as well as our crew member 7, Kevin Sprogge. Our other crew member 7 is Sarah Knight. She is on Capcom, so she's on the other end of these communications tests that we're doing with our astronauts today. Thank you again, everybody, for joining us live. We're at T-minus 25 minutes to go until launch. Our crew experience rehearsal is well underway, seems to be going well so far. While we have a moment here, let's talk about the flight profile of the rocket. Once we finish the crew experience rehearsal, we will extract the stand-in astronauts. They will get back in their car, and they will drive back to Mission Control for New Shepard to enjoy the rest of her day, which includes a flight to space, which will go as such. The rocket will lift off, the propulsion module propelling the crew capsule up towards space. At 75 kilometers, or about 250,000 feet, the two vehicles will separate and continue their ascent to their respective apogees. The booster will, once it's hit its apogee, which is over the Kármán line, over the internationally recognized line of space of 100 kilometers, it will come back down and land on our landing pad just 2 miles north of the launch pad. The capsule, in parallel, will continue its flight up to its own apogee, which we're aiming for about 105 kilometers. If we had astronauts on board, they would get their 3 minutes of weightlessness, gazing out of the beautiful windows. You know, as we said, 6 seats, 6 windows. Over a third of the capsule is windows. So when, you know, Patrick, when we get the opportunity to fly up there, it's going to feel like we are floating in space with all that window.
It's going to be incredible.
It's going to be incredible, absolutely. And after the 3 minutes, buckle back in, and the capsule descends, comes down under 3 big parachutes. And just in the last moments, we have the retro thrust system that fires and creates basically an air cushion for a nice soft landing back into our valley here, back in the desert. So we're at T-minus 24 minutes and 51 seconds to go to launch. We were in a brief hold. I understand we'll be emerging from the hold here shortly, while the team is continuing to do its various checks, communications checks. They have to check all the systems that are in there. Again, this is the first time that we've had stand-in astronauts, people on top of this fully fueled rocket. And again, we will not be flying them to space, but we're doing just about everything but today. We did see Joel Eby, our photographer, go into the capsule to get some last-minute photos of Gary Lai and Audrey Powers. There are stand-in astronauts.
As we can see, yeah, we did the simulated hatch closing, so we got that check out of the way, and now the hatch is back open, and we've entered that planned hold that should last a couple of minutes here. And this pre-planned hold is part of the rehearsal operations designed to make sure we can get our astronauts out of the capsule. Again, we call that egress, and then headed back to the safety shelter, and then eventually back into their cars and mission control. Of course, we're doing this time because we're taking the astronauts out. On launch day, this hold would not happen because, of course, our astronauts would be going to space, right?
That is right. So we
T-minus
just
10,
saw
9, 8, 7, 6, 5,